And good morning to all of those out there in the virtual world with us. So we're gonna get started. Being again, welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us at the Native Americans in Philanthropy Annual Conference, hosted here in Minneapolis. Very exciting. And I'll just open with a quick Ojibwe greeting and then we'll get started. So Mino Gijigud, Indinawe Maganuduk, Nikki Paratus, Indigenakaz, Chumukamang, Wase Gijiko Kwe, Indigenakaz Ojibwe Mang, Makwan and Dudam, Onamani, Zagi Igang and Dunjaba. So my government name is Nikki Paratus, my Indian name is Bright Up the Sky Woman, and I'm Bear Clan from the beautiful Lake Vermilion side of the Bois Forte Reservation. It's about 4 hours north of here. We also have a large urban Bois Forte community, and just very excited to be here. I'm a first-time NAP conference attendee, so super excited. And when they were just asking to reflect on like what really excites you about this week and getting to be together, I just think of like one of Tawahi Foundation, that's ED of Tawahi Foundation, one of our grantees shares a teaching on that word I opened with, Indinawe Maganuduk, which means my relatives. And he says, it literally means, I am all my relatives and all my relatives are me. And I think it's just beautiful that in philanthropy, sometimes we can feel disconnected, right, from each other. We're all in different pockets of the country or even sometimes the globe, but just being able to be together in this space and to show even and share with Greater Philanthropy that relationships are what everything is built on, I think is what's really exciting me and everyone else I've talked to so far last night and this morning. So without further ado, I do want to open and introduce our drum this morning, Bear Runner. They are a drum group from the Twin Cities here in Minnesota, and they embody the spirit of community and tradition. And just a fun fact, Nation and his singers are also the drum group for Tawahi Foundation. And so they're just very near and dear to our heart. I'm glad they're here this morning. And rooted in their teachings from their elders, they stand as a collective of singers dedicated to serving the urban Indian community here in the Twin Cities through the preservation of song and dance. And Bear Runner singers are educators and stewards of ancestral wisdom. And so I think without further introduction, let's give them a hand. And Chimagwech Bear Runner.
Hey! Thank you so much, Bear Runner. Another round of applause, please, for the dancers. We're so happy to have you join us today. Thank you for being here. Good morning. That's a nice response. I like that. If I could see any of you, that would be even better. My name is Matt Morton. I'm from the Squaxin Island Tribe in Western Washington, and I'm also the president of the Community Foundation for Southwest Washington. But really importantly, today, I am in my 6th year of serving on the board of Native Americans in Philanthropy, currently as the vice chair. I'm about to end my term, and I say it because if there's anyone out there who has an interest, anyone here in the room or streaming live who has an interest in joining NAIA and working, or joining NAP and working with NAP in a different way, maybe board leadership is a way to do it. You can reach out to us via the app or just find us in the hallways here at the conference. So it's an open invitation. So I am absolutely thrilled to be here with all of you at the opening plenary session. In my time in philanthropy, and definitely in my time working within and running Native nonprofits, I think I've learned one thing, that there is a consistent characteristic that thriving communities have, and that is self-determination. It is not just our right as Native people, but it is one of the most important tools that we have at our disposal to be in control of our future on our own terms. That's a pretty important tool to have and to practice consistently, and I'm excited about this panel that is going to talk more about that. Before we do, I want to just take a moment to thank one of our Twin City sponsors, the Shakopee. I think my very first NAP conference was actually out at Shakopee, and one of our panelists, Janine Kamino, and I did a presentation on some work that we were doing in the urban Native communities around the country. It's nice to be back here. It's nice to have Shakopee continue their long support of NAP and certainly their support of this conference. So with that said, it is my absolute honor to introduce one of the many people who has helped shape Native Americans in philanthropy and in fact elevate self-determination in the philanthropic sector. Please, will you join me in welcoming our CEO of Native Americans in Philanthropy, Eric Stegman.
Good morning. Well, this is just so exciting to see you all gathered here in this room this morning, as a lot of work has gone into this gathering, both with our relatives here in the Minneapolis area, but also my incredible staff who's put so much time and effort into creating this space that I hope you will all enjoy and find inspiring for this week. My name is Eric Stegman. It is a pleasure to be the CEO here at Native Americans in Philanthropy. I am celebrating my 4th year on the job, which surprises me because it feels like I've actually been here a lot longer than that. And you know, I was just thinking as Matt was talking about some of his early days at NAP, I was thinking back to, you know, when did I actually first really start working around Native Americans in philanthropy, and it was when I used to work for the Hopi appellate court system many, many years ago in my early lawyer days, and we were working on a really amazing nonprofit that helped set up family dispute resolution systems to get cases out of the tribal courts. And I wasn't very good at fundraising back then, and I didn't know who funded these kinds of programs. And that's when some of our good friends at the Hopi Foundation, who are some of our pivotal founders here, brought me to a NAP conference. And it was the first time I got to meet Native people working in the field, meeting a lot of other really great nonprofits and just sort of sharing tips and tricks and insights about what they had been doing to to develop and sustain nonprofits. And it was a really special space. So to be able to come back many years later, over 30 years later, and to see this kind of room where we sold out 2 months early and had to double our registration. So I want to give a big hand to everyone for that. We also really wanted to come home with this conference. Minnesota is a really important place for us. Many of our founders who are here in the room were part of founding this organization, and we're from here. We had our offices here for many decades. Many of our longstanding relationships and partnerships are here, and it felt really important to come back to a place with such historic meaning. So many of the movements that have pushed our people forward have come from this area. The many, many tribes and cultures and Native-led nonprofits and activists that were part of a lot of these movements over the last several decades are grounded here, and you can really feel that presence in the work. I want to also express my gratitude for the local advisory committee. They've done an amazing job as partners in really helping us create a vision around this conference and to bring us into some of their partnerships and relationships. And I think you're going to be seeing that throughout this conference, and we're very appreciative. And of course to our sponsor partners who've given so much of their resources to make this space happen. So, you know, our mission is to indigenize philanthropy at Native Americans in philanthropy, and that can mean so many different things, and many of you are part of that. Some of you have been part of our member education series that we have every month, where we lift up important conversations that are happening across indigenous communities and tribal nations, issues that oftentimes don't surface in philanthropy, and we house those on our YouTube channel. You'll be meeting many of our Native youth grant makers who are here with us at this conference, a program near and dear to my heart that was actually co-designed by Native youth leaders in my old gig at the Center for Native American Youth, where we wanted to make sure that our young people had a voice in this sector and that this was a more intergenerational dialogue. So I hope you'll get a chance to meet these inspiring young people. And then some of you have been part of our new partnerships, where we're building public-private partnerships with tribal nations to think about the role that philanthropy can play in unlocking new federal dollars and removing barriers to treaty-bound trust resources and thinking through new solutions that philanthropy can play to really support tribes and in seeing a vision that they want in their future. So as Matt said, we're here to talk about the future of self-determination, which is an issue very near and dear to my heart. I grew up in policy. I went to law school to go serve tribal nations, and most of my early life was reading about the self-determination movement. My grandfather and my great-grandfather were part of this movement in the 60s and the 70s. And for some of you, you may not be as familiar with what self-determination means. That's really what we're going to be talking about today. We had to battle years of the government ending their relationships with tribes and turning their back on treaties, forming new policies like relocation that coercively brought our people off of our homelands to cities like Minneapolis and many others across the country, only to find broken promises, poverty, and a lot of other barriers. But our people fought back, and many of those movements had deep roots here to push back and repudiate these policies. And in doing that, it really helped a lot of our movements and activists think about what self-determination actually meant, even off the reservation. What does it mean to actually take back your education, to reconnect with your culture when it's been stripped of you? These are all concepts we're going to be talking about today. I'm really excited for our conversation. I think finally, I hope that we wanted to kick this off today because we wanted to have a conversation that's really thinking about the future of self-determination and all the different ways that the partners you're going to hear from are thinking about that, from funders to urban nonprofits to tribal leaders. There's a real energy, I think, across tribal communities, whether that's in philanthropy or some of our other movements, that is inspiring. We're finally breaking free of some of the deficit narratives that we've been part of and a lot of the worst barriers in our community, and really thinking about how we actually see a vision for ourselves in an indigenous future, which is a lot of what we're going to be talking about throughout the week. So with that, let's get to our conversation. I'd like to invite our panelists up to the stage, and then I'll go ahead and introduce them after we transition here. All right. So I'm really excited to have this conversation today. It's a really cross-cutting conversation, and I've already enjoyed so much of what we've discussed leading up to this. Just to introduce our panelists, we have Dr. Alicia Mousseau, who's the Vice President of the Oglala Sioux Tribe over there in the red. We've got Kitki Carroll, who's the Executive Director of the United South and Eastern Tribes. Janine Kaminote, Executive Director of the Urban Indian Family Coalition. Sam Gill, the President and CEO of Doris Duke Foundation. And President Alexander Salmon from the village of Igiugig. So welcome our panel, please. So I'm going to kick this off by just asking each of you a question, first of all, to help us learn a little bit more about you and who you are and where you come from, but also how you're entering this conversation. I'm going to start with you, President Salmon. Can you tell us how you define self-determination for your tribal community, and tell us a little bit about where you're coming from?
I'm Alexandra. I belong to the place where Nunvuchpuk, Alaska's largest lake known as Lake Iliamna, flows into the Kvichak River, which then flows into Bristol Bay, and it supports the largest sockeye run in the world. I'm the president of the tribe, so for Igiugig Village Council, which is a nation of 70 people in southwest Alaska. We like to call ourselves small but mighty. It's the recognition of our inherent right to self-govern our nations, and it means knowing who the self is in self-determination. We're governed through our cultural values, and those values determine the direction our community wants to go. But I'm also a partner at Alaska Venture Fund, and as a partner, that means bringing the tools and networks and resources to meet our communities where they're at and to give them agency to activate those core values. So, Guyana.
Great, thank you so much, President Salmon. Dr. Mousseau, I'm going to go to you next. Can you tell us about how you look at self-determination in your role, and tell us a little bit more about who you are and where you come from?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Eric, and Hihani Wash Day, everybody. My name is Alicia Mousseau. My parents are the late John and Bear Mousseau. My grandparents are the late Lena and James Mousseau, and we're from Porcupine, South Dakota. Hey, that's a porcupine! Is that my auntie? Hi, auntie! Love you. And my Hunka parents are Howard and Howard Brown and the late Karen Spoon Hunter Brown, and they're from Wind River, Wyoming. So I don't know if we have any Northern Arapahoes in here, but shout out to you all too. So I'm the vice president for the Oglala Sioux Tribe. I'm an actual psychologist by training, and I know every field has their language and their key concepts and words that you need to know to navigate those systems, and self-determination is one of those in tribal politics, right? And when I think about self-determination, you think about, are we 638ing something? Are we contracting something? And that has implications for how you get your money, where you get your money from, how you can use your money, whether Congress can come in and take your money or not. All these pieces that come with the term self-determination. But when I think about self-determination, I think about our families and our children, and the work that we need to do there to strengthen our families and our children, because those are really our future generations. And we do a lot of work in Indian country, especially in our community in Pine Ridge, without a lot of money. We just do it because there's some key cultural and traditional pieces to us that are important that we've held on to and we still have today. So that makes us really rich. And we want to keep those things, whether we have money to do it or not, right? We come together for those things. And that's what I think about when I think about self-determination, is what are those things that are so important to you that you will do whatever you can to keep them. And also, even if you don't have money to do it, you'll still come together to do it. Money does help. I do think money helps when you can be able to think creatively and bring more resources in. But we've been able to we have a Indian Child Welfare Act and a CPS task force at home, and we have not had any money. We've had people power, right? And we've been able to do so much with that task force and bringing people together. And we actually just got we actually became a new Tiwahe demonstration site. So we're super excited to see what we can do with that funding. And one of the main things, the first priorities, like I said, we don't have a lot of money, but we do a lot of work, is to raise salaries for our ICWA specialists. They're making $27,000 a year. And so that's not easy to live on, right? So when I think of self-determination, I think of what are those important things in our community that we will do anything for regardless of whether we have funding. And once we get funding, how can we be creative and come around those things to really build them up and strengthen them and pass them on to future generations?
Yeah, that's so great. There's just so much of what I love about this work and kind of thinking about the resource side of this is just how much innovation is happening out there. And so much of this is about pointing different kinds of resource providers to that innovation. But it's got to be grounded in that community vision. And I just really appreciate that. Kitki, I'm going to go to you next. How do you look at this issue and your role? And can you tell us a little bit more about you and where you come from?
Sure. Pivona Naheshave, Kitki Carroll, Natista. Good morning, my relatives. My name is Kitki Carroll. I'm Cheyenne Arapaho. I serve as the Executive Director for United South and Eastern Tribes, which is very briefly is tribal nations from the northeastern woodlands down the Atlantic coast to the Everglades and across the Gulf Coast. I'm not going to repeat some of the answers that have already been offered that I fully agree with, but one flavor piece that I think is important to add to this conversation. Eric, I think I heard you mention this in your opening remarks from behind the curtain. I think it's important that we all recognize history as part of this conversation and the role that plays in where we are right now. Specifically, you know, if you just look at self-determination, what that means, that's pretty obvious with all the different flavors and nuances that you want to add to it. Our complication goes beyond that, though, today. And just for context, so I want to recognize and applaud everybody who's in this room and all the lanes that you occupy in doing this very important work. The lane that I occupy is in the nation-to-nation diplomacy space and all that comes with that. And what's always fascinating to me is too many folks don't have an appreciation of that very history. And when you think about federal Indian policy over the years, decades, and centuries, prior to the passage of Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act in '75, every single federal policy prior to that was seeking to terminate or assimilate us. So we're talking about 50 years of returning to our original status and our right to be self-determining. But to act like those other policies did not impact today would be naive. And just a very quick story I want to share, and my apologies if you've heard this before. It's the story of a flea, and I'm not comparing us to fleas by any extent, but it's a story where a flea can jump 100 times its weight. It's pretty impressive. And as the story goes, the experiment is you put a flea inside of a glass jar, and over the course of 3 months, it learns to only jump as high as the ceiling in that glass jar. And even after you lift that lid off, it has been conditioned to only jump that high. And that's what federal Indian policy is. It has taught us over these decades and centuries that we can only jump this high, when the truth of the matter is, as self-determining, inherently sovereign government structures, we can jump as high as we want to jump without restriction. And this is our biggest challenge. And while there are a lot of external threats, whether they're states, whether it's the federal government, whether it's general society not viewing us the way that we feel we are deserved to be viewed, one of our biggest challenges is ourselves. To get back to a place where we can dream and vision with that level of vision and ingenuity and creativity and all these things that is demanded for our populations and for our people. So it's going to require a variety of things to make that happen, whether it's philanthropic relationships, whether it's the federal government fulfilling its promises. You mentioned broken promises. Well, before that was Quiet Crisis Report, right? It's all these things that have to find a way to work together to reimagine this relationship in a way that all these artificial boundaries and barriers that are put in our way of achieving that self-determination are removed. And what's important to remember in this conversation is, as part of being self-determining, it means you have the right to make good choices and bad choices, and to learn from those experiences. There is not a single sovereign on this planet who has always gotten it all right. But the most powerful and strong sovereigns have learned from those mistakes over the years. And we need to be afforded that same opportunity without threats of having funding pulled away or threats that you're not going to be able to continue this program because of this and that and the other. That's artificial, right? We are not grant recipients, we are nations, and we need to be dealt with in that diplomatic sort of manner.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, one of the first things that really resonated with me when I started this job was I started the February before COVID really hit hard. And that was one of those where the conversations I was having with funders was a lot about this, because we have a lot of struggles in our communities, but the way that we jumped into action, the way that we brought resources together, it was so inspiring to so many funders. And some of the deepest conversations I had were things like food systems and all these things we've been doing to push back and get back to where we know we need to be. While the rest of the country's seeing their systems fall apart, they realize they actually need to be learning from us a lot more. And so we see this over and over again, and I'm just really excited to have this conversation today. Janine, we're both from Seattle. I grew up, in urban movements myself, and we wanted to make sure that we were having this full conversation about what self-determination really means, because it's got a lot of different depth and nuance. But can you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you come from, your role, and how do you look at self-determination from urban Indian America?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So my name is Janine Kamenout, and I am a citizen of the Quinault Indian Nation, which is on the west coast of Washington State. I'm also a Nuu-chah-nulth from Vancouver Island and Oglala from Pine Ridge. I'm the founding executive director of the National Urban Indian Family Coalition, and we represent 55 urban American Indians human service nonprofits in 23 states and over 40 cities. It's a really good question. So, when you work in the urban space, you're not ever working in the government to government relationships. But what I do know is that Native people, we are all self-determining people. And I would be remiss in not giving a big, huge shout out to the Native nonprofit sector in Minneapolis, who have paved the way for so many of us throughout the country. And I will use that as an example. So when we look at somewhere like Minneapolis, we look at there's like 3 tribes or so, maybe more, who have urban offices, who recognize, tribal nations also recognize that their citizens, all of us don't live on the reservation. Sometimes we can't go back to the reservation because there's not enough housing, because we're one of the fastest growing populations in the nation. So I think for urban people, we look at it as we are self-determining individuals, and these organizations that work with our communities really help them be that. So education, healthcare, Indian child welfare, you sort of name it, and there's a nonprofit out there who does it. And you look at, somewhere like Minneapolis, where they have the Minneapolis Urban Indian Directors group, who has really been organizing for 30, 40 years now to make sure that Native people writ large, and particularly urban Native people, have a voice in not just sort of our body politic, but in policy arenas and in all of that. And I'll end with, I think that one of the more important roles that urban Native people play in self-determination as it relates to sovereignty is that we vote. And there's a lot of us who vote. And I think that voting in the people who are going to have those nation-to-nation relationships that's a really important role that we all play.
Yeah, thank you. And, I think one of the things that people who maybe aren't as familiar with our communities don't realize, how many of us are journeying, between these different spaces, reservation, back in our urban communities, and the ability of our urban nonprofits to create this community, this space, this power has just been so inspiring for me. And thank you for sharing how important Minneapolis particularly is to this movement. Sam, I'm going to go to you next. So we're doing a lot of different stuff together these days, and you all have been a great partner on a lot of our different issues. But I'd love to hear, how, especially now that you've been in your role for a while, how are you looking at the role of philanthropy in investing in self-determination in these different ways?
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks for having us here, and thanks everyone for being here. We're honored to be here, and I'm from Minneapolis, so it's great to be home. Just to kind of give folks a sense of who we are, Doris Duke Foundation is a $2 billion independent foundation based in New York City, Hillsborough, New Jersey, and Honolulu, Hawaii. And not exclusively, but a significant share of our recent work in working with indigenous and tribal communities is around the issue of natural conservation. Doris Duke was a significant advocate for the conservation of natural lands, waters, and species during her lifetime. That's a commitment that we inherit. And our recent work, led by Danielle Lavoie, our program officer for the environment, who is here, has really been focused on trying to help to energize and build an indigenous-led movement for conservation on indigenous lands in this country. And in that work, certainly, and I think I suspect is emblematic of a lot of the work that different foundations are doing in Indian country. Our role is really to learn rather than to lecture about what self-determination really means to tribal and indigenous communities. Some of what we're learning is represented in the kind of work that we're doing. Approaching the work, I think first and foremost in recognizing that, as Kit, I think, articulated quite well, like many other management regimes in this country, conservation, the environmental conservation movement historically has been a force of assimilation and extermination and dispossession. And so there really is no doing the work without confronting and learning and trying to understand that history and its legacy. Kind of more practically, some of the elements of self-determination that we've been learning about are both superficial and more profound. I think some of the superficial elements are, the ability to set one's own ends as a community requires resources. So a lot of our work has been, including with you, has been investing, and with United Southern Eastern Tribes, has been investing in efforts to unlock, federal resources that tribal communities are owed in order to undertake this work. Another superficial element of setting one's ends as a community is having the right kind of expertise. And as in so many other sectors, the long legacy of divestment is the lack of expertise for many tribal communities to conserve their lands in the way that they want to. I think sort of more profoundly is the question of exactly what knowledge is brought to bear. And I think a kind of insidious encroachment on self-determination, on the management of tribal and indigenous lands according to how communities want to manage them, is the role of something like conservation science, which is to treat these things as sort of immutable facts, is to sort of miss the way in which the articulation of what counts as valid knowledge is itself the most profound form of control. And so a lot of our work has also been investing in the application of structures and processes that enable tribal and indigenous communities to manage their lands in the way that they want to, and to elevate tribal and indigenous conservation knowledge sort of into the pantheon of significant, important knowledge about how to manage lands across this entire country.
Thank you, Sam. And I really appreciate you highlighting that knowledge piece, because I think we're part of a collaborative called the Tribal Nations Conservation Collaborative, and that's been one of the most exciting things for me to see, is the other funders finally starting to understand our knowledge and our wisdom in this work, and just how many ways that's actually being put into action on the ground. My staff was probably trying to run up here and tell me that I forgot to mention that we do have a Q&A section in the app. So if you would like to offer some questions for Q&A a little bit later in the conversation, you can submit those through the app. If you tap the agenda in the lower left-hand corner and then tap the plenary session that we're in to the Q&A section, we'll be collecting some of those toward the end. So President Salmon, I'd love to go back to you. I'm so excited to finally come up and visit you in your community, because I have worked with you for some time now, worked with a lot of your partners on the ground, and it's every time I hear about some innovative thing you're doing with harnessing the power of the river for power in your community, your language restoration programs, and they're so collaborative and cross-sector. And I would love to hear a little bit more about how you look at developing these solutions with your community and how you partner with these different sectors like philanthropy and the things that Alaska Venture Fund does. Let's talk about the innovation side of what you're doing in your community.
So our community has always been innovative, and I would say that we're very new to philanthropy, and this is my first time at the NAP conference. I said I would like to go and observe, and then they put me right on stage. But going back to that self-determination, I want to talk a little bit about what that looked like for my little village, because initially our people were living freely out on the land. That was my grandmother's generation, that they just lived freely. And then they self-determined, made a decision they were going to open a school in present-day Igiugig because they wanted the youth to remain home. So they sacrificed their life out on the land because they saw the wave coming of children being taken away. So then they settled into a year-round community, and then all of the forces of colonization, the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, and the separation of our land and governance, and everything that, all the fractionation and the late waves of allotment and the termination era politics has resulted in a situation where our community in 2001 struggled to keep the school open anymore. And the mentality was our youth need to actually leave to survive in this world and learn. Our homelands weren't looked at as the land of opportunity, and then our community came together. This is what self-determination looks like. I, sitting here today, am a product of it. And it's not this concept that sits out there. Our community came together and said, what does our village need to look like to be a place our youth want to return and remain? And they did it for the entire village, and they visioned, and they came up with a vision, and I participated in that as a youth. And then I went off to college with a purpose and took Native American Studies because it took studying all the way on the East Coast to learn about what happened around me, around us. And then today, we have been, we realized that worked. 20 years later, my generation was the first to come back and stay, and we were the first generation to get this Western education. And we have been fighting for 20 years against major industry that we don't want to upset our ways of life. So we have built a very educated workforce and innovative, and many of us have multiple skill sets to survive, and not only just survive, but thrive and sustain in place. So to do that, when we talk about operating off of core values, one of our indigenous values is thanguk, and it's awareness. When we gained awareness that our adoption of this diesel was actually threatening our salmon run, we decided we were going to transition. And that was self-determined transition. We started transitioning in 2012. Our first funding actually came in 2007. And then it's been every wave after that. Our community said, we want a cultural center. And I said, if we build it tomorrow, what are we putting in there? We need our ancestors repatriated. We need our languages revitalized. We need our dances back. We've been recovering from, the pandemic of 1919, where we had 3 survivors. These are real, the history that you bring up, Kitki, is really important. And what you mentioned, Sam, the federal resources tribes are owed. We were in this, that the federal government isn't able to provide those resources. So today, when Igiugig comes together, what does our self-determined future look like? It looks like land back. It looks like tribal stewardship. It looks like mapping our traditional territory and then filling all of those positions to return the value of our land back the way we valued it so that it can sustain the planet. Because it's a global responsibility for the watershed that we live on. Because of what has happened, it will take private philanthropy. It will absolutely take private philanthropy to get the land back, to do everything that needs to be put in place. To be the president of a tribe and living on leased land. What does your future look like if you don't own your foundation? So that's really important. And then talking about nationhood building through the lens of tribal sovereignty in my community. It means we will never have a city. It means we will be a tribe But most importantly, I've been using private philanthropy to make resilient programming. We know the federal funding is not enough. We know challenges come along the way. We know partners don't deliver sometimes, and that's where private philanthropy can pick up that so that we do not lose the momentum. And once I experienced how robust our programming is, and then what we could do in partnership with Alaska Venture Fund to not only invest at a hyper-local level and go all in and build that nation, and then the nation can turn around and help the nation next to them, and then one next to them. So like the language program we do is 6 tribes together, and the telecom work we do where we want to own the fiber, the final mile of fiber, that's 16 tribes. And all of it is coming through Igiugig Village Council, and we're helping each other, and that's the future. That's where I want to get to, where we're tribal to tribal, helping each other, and private philanthropy will get us there. Juliana.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's amazing work, and I'm so happy that you brought up our ability to support each other. I think that's another thing that doesn't always come out clearly for especially funders who haven't worked with our tribes, is how much it is in our very nature to actually support, to share knowledge, lessons, even in the hardest, most technical things we have happening in tribal communities. Tribes are always wanting to come together and support each other in that work, and that's so much of what has been exciting about some of the work that we're doing as a partner is thinking about, okay, what are those structures on the ground like Alaska Venture Fund that can provide that platform to bring tribes together to build and to grow, and then how do we resource those things, right? So I just really appreciate that. Vice President Mousseau, I wanted to go to you next and ask, you all have been thinking a lot about some of the different sort of structures you're trying to build out there, and how you're hoping to get more philanthropic dollars invested in your community. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the challenges that you've faced in both sort of how funders do or don't come to partner with you, and what are some of the things you're hoping to do to make it easier for those dollars to actually flow and work with some of the federal programs that you also administer?
Yeah, sure. So when I introduce myself, I introduce my family, my community, because you never know when you're going to have an auntie or a cousin or other wild Oglalas in the audience, right? And I think that's what it's about, is building those relationships, right? We have to get to know each other. We have to build trust. And I know Ms. Pirtos in the beginning talked about relationships, and that's huge in our communities. And that's huge for us to understand each other and work together and see what we can do together. The Oglala Sioux Tribe, we have about 80 programs, right? And all these programs service our communities. And as I mentioned earlier, our $27,000 ICWA specialist salary is one thing that we know we need to raise and work on. But a lot of people don't know that, right? ICWA's an unfunded mandate. Imagine if we all came around ICWA to be able to keep our children with our tribes, with their families. We know that it's a gold standard, right? Our kids do better when they stay with their families and in their communities. But what if we all came together to wrap our minds around that, as Sitting Bull said, see what we can do for our children. And so I think that's the part, is just coming together and building those relationships and understanding and trusting and supporting each other. So this is y'all's formal invite to Pine Ridge to come visit us and come see and even join some of our meetings that we have for some of the issues. We have established task force and things to talk about it. We actually had Casey Family Programs out yesterday. And they are experts, right? And they provided us some really good insights into what we can do to build our CPS and ICWA program, those foundational things. And, I'm talking about ICWA and CPS a lot, and that's usually the end of the road, right, for our children. So we need to also go further upstream to see where our babies are getting in the river and prevent them from getting in the river. We know that too, right? But we have to build this, and we have to build it together. And I think that's a part of it, is just those relationships and developing those, and eating together and coming together and just having those conversations. So that's the formal invite for you guys to come and visit us in Pine Ridge and see how we can work together.
It's great. Yeah, relationships are everything, and it's a huge part of what you're going to be hearing this entire week is just how much all of us are trying to help this sector better understand what we mean by relationships and really getting to know each other. I always share, one of the funniest things that used to happen in my last job when I was working with youth leaders is I'd have to submit a grant to a funder, an application with a budget, and I always had a line item that just said community time on there for like a program grant. And it was always a big back and forth because they're like, well, what's the outcome? What do you mean by community time? I'm like, oh, we're just going to go hang out on the res with the tribal administrator and go meet some people and see if there's some trust we're going to build there together. And it took so much for me just to like push that, and it was just this one line item in a budget to really help people understand that like you can't fractionate the way that we do our work this way. And I think so much of what we're all trying to do together is to break those silos down alongside our partners in philanthropy. I'm going to go next to you, Janine. One of the things I'd love to hear from you, because a lot of what we're talking about is how we work with our relatives and our community partners to really build that vision and to do that planning. I think that's one of the things that, to what Kiki was saying earlier, has really been taken away from us over the years, is this ability to really think about what we can do, the power we can build. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you work with your network to build vision around some of the projects that you work on, like democracy is indigenous, some of the stuff you're doing with education, because I think it gets back to this trust building, this relationship building issue.
Yeah, so I would say that our communities, our urban communities, they already have, Native people, we already have the genius to fix our own problems. What we need is the resources to do it. So I think part of what the NUIFC does is we really recognize and celebrate that these organizations out there in cities all across the United States are already doing this work. We think about things like Land Back. One building at a time, urban Indian organizations are taking land back in America's biggest cities. We look at ICWA, we look at education. So it's really limitless what these organizations are doing around sort of looking at what self-determination means. And also that we have our culture and our sovereignty as Native people doesn't leave us when we leave the reservation. It follows us wherever we are. And so recognizing and celebrating that there are these organizations who are working with these families to really improve their outcomes in measurable ways. And I think, when I think about being here at Native Americans in Philanthropy and understanding the role that philanthropy can play, like some of the folks up here have spoken about, is that philanthropy can fund innovation in a way that nobody else can. And for our organizations, philanthropy is awesome, but really it's looking at what I call sort of civic funding. Philanthropy can fund long-term investment into our communities, whether it's on the reservation or off the reservation. It's that innovation piece. So I think for us, that's what we celebrate the most. And again, for our Democracy is Indigenous initiative, that's the recognition that resources follow policy and policy follows elections. So understanding that we're all part of a system that has so many moving parts, and that as Native people, that we recognize that because we're in what our nth generation of experiencing what this means to be a political class as well as a racial class, and understanding that we have to be in these circles if we want to support our tribes. And like you mentioned, for urban Native communities, we're one of the most mobile communities in the country in that we're moving back and forth from the res. Probably everybody here has a relative, if you're Native, who has lived in a city and who has lived on a reservation. So we know sort of what the implications of that are.
Yeah, thank you. And first of all, I love this through line about philanthropy and innovation, because I've seen this firsthand in so many different places. And when funders are actually able to invest in in that innovative process. It's amazing how it helps us get to these bigger things, whether it's, other kinds of federal funding or, building things we didn't think we could build. But the other thing I'm really glad you pointed to is this policy piece. And I kind of travel through this world all the time. My mom's family's from the Carry the Kettle First Nation. My great-grandfather ran away from his boarding school there. He was an urban native back in the early 1900s in Chicago, and I grew up in Seattle, but I was basically told to go to law school and go defend the treaties, right? And so we all have these different kinds of journeys and pathways, and I wanted to go to you next, Kitki, and talking about the role of policy and history in what we're talking about. You sit at a really unique position in working with so many different and diverse tribal nations and the work that you do. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that work looks like for funders? Where does philanthropy have a really important role to play in the policy work and working directly with tribal nations and building their advocacy? I would just love to hear a little bit more about that.
Sure, and I'm going to attempt to weave in some of the thoughts that I've heard, because there's so many thoughts spinning around in my mind right now. But one thing I want to just kind of offer into this conversation, because funding has come up so many times. But in saying this, I'm not saying that federal dollars is the only solution, but it is part of the solution and it's foundational. Specifically, what I want to say about that is, because I've heard, funds, land, et cetera. So just this past weekend, if you're watching the news, you saw that a very divided House of Representatives passed basically a $100 billion spending plan for foreign aid. Now, my comment is not to criticize or to have a conversation about that aid. I'm a global humanitarian. I believe in our common shared humanity across the globe. But in the context of this conversation, I find it fascinating that with the snap of a finger, we can appropriate or get close to at least that point of sending $100 billion overseas, yet we can't honor promises here domestically. Well, at the same time, the very country that we are engaged in this diplomatic relationship with still holds the lands and natural resources, right? So there's value in that. They benefit from that. So as an advocacy organization, whether that ever happens in my lifetime or my children's lifetime is beside the point. As long as the United States holds the land and natural resources, our position is that they have a responsibility to fulfill those obligations. It's that simple. They choose not to. They make a discretionary choice every single year to dishonor those promises, but it's our collective responsibility, regardless of what lane you traverse, to make sure that we are holding the United States responsible and accountable. Where philanthropy can come in, or general Americans for that matter can come in, is the truth of the matter is, tying back to this history again, everybody who calls himself an American is a direct beneficiary of the very history that I'm talking about. So therefore, you should have a sharp, concerted interest in what we're talking about right now as this land's first occupants. You should want to make sure that you are honoring that relationship in that sort of way. So just like in the foreign aid space where there's federal dollars going overseas, there's also philanthropic dollars accompanying those federal dollars to go overseas in support of all the aspirations that those dollars are targeted for. Same thing should happen here, but what we argue is, shouldn't it even be stronger here domestically? If we all share this domestic existence here, coexist as governments, whether you're tribal nations first, states, and then the United States, in that exact order, not the reverse, as history would try to tell you it is, it's in that order, then isn't it in our mutual best interests that any country is thriving, that any country is successful? Because the truth of the matter is, our success is not just held within our own jurisdictional boundaries. It benefits the non-native who's surrounding us, and it benefits all Americans for that matter. But it's a righteous and a justice thing to do. The thing about our organization is we've got about 200 plus years in the space of federal Indian policy, because that's the grooming space where all those policies started, and then they went westward. So we've seen firsthand. So when everybody talks about the shift in demographics and what Indian country looks like today, it's because of this very history that we're talking about. Part of urban existence is because of these very federal policies that we talk about, right? And we got to understand that and really understand the nuance behind that as we're kind of figuring out what our space and our place and all these things are today. But when you talk about policy, land, I heard, as a foundation to exerting inherent rights and authorities, et cetera. What most people don't even recognize, so when we talk about the fee to trust process of taking fee simple land that you're paying taxes to your local municipality or the state and putting into trust with the United States, you don't own those lands. You are the quote unquote beneficial occupant of those trust lands, right? So even in that space, when we talk about fee to trust, and we are one of the biggest proponents, organization of fee to trust, because that's at least what's available to us now, but really exerting sovereign rights and authorities is having full rights and authorities and decision-making over those lands that you own, period. No questions asked about it. And that's what the goal is, and that's what the goal should be to allow us to get to that point. And even though we're a regional organization, we are basically a micro example of what you see at a macro level across Indian country because of our geographic footprint and the diversity within our region. So just by example, we have some members who are tribal nations who are basically 100% dependent upon federal grants, contracts, and awards. At the other end of the spectrum, we have tribal nations who are having tremendous success economically. We have tribal nations, because of the very history we're talking about, that don't have a single fluent speaker left. We have other members who are 80% language, indigenous tongue, language retention, fluency, and everything in between, right? We've got kids going to public schools. We've got kids going to grant control schools, BIE schools. You've got it all those things happening within our region. So that gives us an understanding kind of what's going on at a macro example across Indian country. But we have to reimagine this whole relationship. In the space of self-determination in terms of a policy that we'll be celebrating next year in 2025, it has been instrumental in bringing us to where we are today. But even right now, to your question about policy, we're having policy fights with other agencies and departments outside of HHS and DOI who aren't open to self-determination and self-governance for all the reasons that they're opposing it, that we don't agree with, right? Because our position is every agency and department should be willing to enter in contracts and compacts if that's the sovereign decision that the tribal nation makes, period, right? So it has taken us a long ways from those years of self-determination, from assimilation, termination, but there are still artificial boundaries even within that policy space of self-determination. So we've got to move even beyond that in terms of really exerting those sovereign rights, authorities, and powers. And just the last thing that I will say is when you think about the whole overall structure and the foundation of this relationship, we all freely use this term, the trust relationship, the trust model. What's important to remember is that trust model, even in 2024, is a remnant of some antiquated past and a paternalistic way of thinking about things. The trust model, as written by Kevin Gover, who was a former assistant secretary during the Clinton administration, says the trust model is based upon two things. One, that we're incompetent to handle our own affairs, and two, that we're eventually going away. Think about how absurd that is. But it's because they were designing federal policies to achieve those very two things. And even though that we've persevered through all that and we are still here and we are getting land back and we're doing all these wonderful things, that is still the basis of the relationship of which we navigate. It is very outdated, it is very paternalistic, and it is highly inappropriate. So we've got to start pushing boundaries beyond that, to really get into a place where, again, this is a diplomacy conversation. We should be recognized within the space of the UN. If we're going to sign on to the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, okay, then we have a seat in that space as a sovereign entity, but we're not counted in that space, right? So there's so many things going on in the policy space that we have to remember, including the very sovereignty that we talk about constantly being under attack. Constantly, whether it's out there in the general population or whether it's in the Supreme Court. Our sovereign status is being threatened because it's attacked because it is a threat into their sovereign existence, and many of them don't like that. So this is a very important time for Indian country, again, regardless of what lane you're in, to find ways to work together where we can partner, because we need those numbers. We need that leverage. The last thing I'll say, I know I'm going too long, but in a prior career, I did immigration and refugee work. These are people coming from around the globe to the United States, a good majority of them not even speaking a lick of English. But they were able to find a way to come together on common grounds for their own advantage and progress in ways that are just fascinating for me to see. Yet in the community where I was, because of intertribal disputes and fighting and all these sorts of things, they were making greater strides than the indigenous population that is from the area. That's just not acceptable. We've got to find a way to work together for our own greatest benefit and advantage.
Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And to, just to give a little bit of a flavor of part of what I've had a lot of fun with in this job to some of what you're talking about, Kitki, I'm going to go back to you, Sam, in how philanthropy can really think differently about what we're doing to partner with tribes and native-led nonprofits. And one of the things that happened as I was coming in is a lot of this new federal funding was starting to flow through things like the Inflation Reduction Act and the infrastructure bill. And we started to have some really great conversations with the Doris Duke team about what can we do to really support tribes in accessing these dollars that they are owed for the important work that they're trying to do to steward our lands and waterways. And we created this conservation collaborative, which is a unique space where we're bringing funders together with tribal leaders, and we're creating things like pooled funds that have helped guarantee the non-federal match requirement for any successful tribe that are applied to the America the Beautiful Challenge, which is one of the bigger funding pools in the space. And although they seem like these little technical things, it has been amazing to see how much that's taken off of the plate of tribes that shouldn't have to deal with things like a match requirement when they are owed these resources. But philanthropy could really play a role there. And it's been so great working with you and your team and thinking that strategy through. I'd love to hear a little bit more from you about, what are some of the ways that you've been trying to shift your own practice? What are some of the things that you're trying to push other funders to do to shift their practice so that they can better partner with our communities and our tribes?
Yeah, I think, and again, it's certainly an ongoing process of learning, and we're still very much at the beginning. I mean, I think the other panelists have said really well what philanthropic funding is for, which really is for innovation, and to some extent that's a function of scale. It's either for discovering something that no one knows, or for disseminating and spreading something that someone knows but everyone can benefit from. And I think one of the endemic challenges for philanthropy, which has also been well articulated here, is that we suffer from the same pathology as the rest of United States society, which is that we don't, the many of the structures of oppression and repression and marginalization of tribal and indigenous communities are invisible to us because they have served us for so long. And so it's one thing to say, of course, we want to enable and support innovation in tribal indigenous communities. It's another thing to say, well, maybe the pattern of what innovation looks like and how to support it isn't the pattern that we know from some of the other communities that we've worked with and for some of the other issues that we've worked on. In the case, obviously, of conservation, these are the patterns of innovation just look different than what are held up as patterns of innovation in kind of the legacy mainline conservation movement. I think the example you've given of technical assistance funding is a really good one. Unfortunately, too often, the conversation about federal investment in tribal indigenous communities ends with the mere authorization of funding, as if that somehow solves the problem. And the reality is, as again, Kiki, I think you've said well, that funding is usually authorized within an administrative and legal structure that, again, has mostly been designed to dispossess and to eliminate and to assimilate. And some of the ways in which that's true are really visible and obvious and glaring and egregious, and we need to move with utmost haste on those. Some are less visible, but guess what? We need to move with utmost haste on those too. And so this is a really good example where a lot of federal funding structures just take for granted either an administrative organization within tribal indigenous communities that's just inaccurate, or it takes for granted a level of capacity that's not there because of historic divestment. So that is an area that we've invested. In other areas that we think are really interesting and are trying to learn about are like co-management of lands. Federal funding, particularly for land conservation, is not silent or neutral as to how lands are supposed to be managed. A lot of that land management regime, though, kind of stems from a white colonial European idea of property ownership and of property management that just doesn't apply in a lot of tribal and indigenous communities. Now, to say that we need to find ways to make those investments that appropriately recognize and enable tribal and indigenous techniques and approaches, again, is only the beginning. Then you've actually got to make the investment in what that looks like, and what it looks like in a way that is durable and is going to survive the people who are working on it today, whether those are the people in a tribal community or the people in the administration who are working to do things differently. And I think that's the only other point that I would make. I think philanthropic funding is not only, it's not just for innovation full stop. It's for innovation that has the potential to be durable. It's for innovation that has the potential to actually change some of these trajectories that exist at a much greater scale and account for a much greater degree of resources. If philanthropy does its job, if we actually do the job of learning from the people on this stage, from the people in this room, and how to support this critical work, the conversation 100 years from now on this stage should be very different. And it should be a conversation in which a lot of the powerful ideas and values that my co-panelists have challenged are things that we recognize as being more abundant and typical and normal in this kind of contiguous geographic area we call the United States.
Well, thank you. That's so great, because I think that sustained impact is exactly what we're all looking for too. So we've got a little bit of time for some audience Q&A. I think our staff has some potential questions out there.
Yes, we do.
Oh, okay. The voice of Tony. Okay.
The lady behind the curtain. Thank you to everyone for submitting questions. We have so many questions that we may not get to them all, but it is worth noting that attendees can submit their own answers. So please take the opportunity to engage in those meaningful conversations. The first question is for Eric and Sam. Do you see promising signs that foundations are getting serious about recruiting and retaining Native board members?
Oh, okay. Well, I can jump on that first. You know, one of the things I've really enjoyed about this role is really learning about the philanthropy serving organization field, or PSOs as we're known. I don't really care for that title, but it's our field. I've learned a lot from our partners at Asian Pacific Islanders in Philanthropy, ABFI, Hispanics in Philanthropy, who have been really trying to invest in how we build more power on these boards and how we create these pathways to really make sure that we're supporting more Native people to serve on these boards. So this is actually a new area of work that we're really going to be trying to double down on. I was just having a conversation with Nicole Maher about this from Inukai Foundation last night. So I'm excited to do more work, because I think for a lot of our partners who have a lot of Indigenous leadership on the border and other spaces, they've really been able to be better champions to other foundations in this space. And I think that's one of the most important roles we can play here too. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to jump in on there, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see signs that we're serious, not serious enough. I mean, I think we should be disappointed, with the progress. Doris Duke Foundation, has no tribal or Native members of our board. I think, and I would just extend the question, I think we need to see that not only foundations are serious, but I think we need to see that the kind of quote unquote legacy or mainline nonprofits in all of these different spaces are serious about this as well. I mean, the reality is that, again, we focus on environmental conservation in this work. Every major environmental conservation NGO should have this at the top of their agenda in thinking about the future of their governance. So I appreciate the question. I think we have a lot of work to do to prove that we're serious about this.
Hey, thank you. Tony, behind the curtain, do we have another question?
We do. Second question is for the entire panel. How can we translate our Native values, ceremonies, and culture into deliverables for grant makers? Evaluation of Native grants should value our Native systems.
All right, who wants that one? Who wants to talk about this translation issue we have with this weird sector of philanthropy?
I'll start. I think foundations should just accept that that is the outcome. End of story.
I agree.
Anyone else on that one?
So we have it written into our codes. Our traditional ways of knowing and practices are written in our actual laws at home. So it's our right to that. And as a sovereign, we can write our own laws. So I would also encourage our tribes to incorporate those into our laws. We even have a Children's Bill of Rights. They have a right to their ceremonies and practices and to their parents. You know what I mean? So also on the tribal side, when we have them in our laws, that's the rights of our people too. So it can match up easily if funders see that as well. So.
Thanks. And yeah, go ahead.
Just to tie those two questions together, just to the philanthropic folks that are in the room, depth of perspective from an indigenous perspective is extremely valuable, or could be extremely valuable towards achieving your broader interests in goals in the philanthropic space. And we've seen that already in this administration with the number of natives that are occupying seats within the federal family, and how that perspective helps better shape these very conversations that we're talking about. So we're hopeful to see more and more of that, because it is a unique, if we're gonna keep saying that this is a special and unique relationship, then the mechanisms that put its arms around that uniqueness need to reflect that. But many times they don't. So whether it's in the federal space and a notice of funding announcement dealing with tribes as if they were dealing with a not-for-profit, which is unacceptable, I would say the same thing then applies in philanthropy, right? We are different, and even though you don't have that trust obligation, the obligation to understand the nuances of any country and the population that you're intentionally wanting to work with is important. So you're not asking for outcomes and things that just aren't appropriate in working with indigenous populations. So having that indigenous representation on your board will help shape some of the structures of those things that would be to our mutual advantage for both of us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't speak for every funder by definition, but I would agree with everything that's been said. I mean, I think the philanthropy in this country is not at its best when it asks other people to do its thing. It's at its best when it enables other people to do their thing in a way that serves some goal, whether that goal is mutual or not. And that's what we look for. Now, again, and I think we've reflected on this extensively this panel, any kind of capital allocation, whether it's public capital allocation or private, is just basically a pattern matching business. But the onus is on foundations to learn a new pattern and to incorporate a new pattern to what they're doing. And I think you're exactly right. That's why representational diversity is so important. It's a really effective and fast way to learn a new pattern. It's not the only way. And I think, any foundation that says it's serious about funding an Indian country and isn't here, that's a problem. This is an easy way to start to learn a new pattern, to be at places like this. So we're just grateful for being welcomed into these places, and I think it's our job to take the invitation and take it seriously.
Thank you. Well, on that note, please join me in thanking our panel for a great conversation. Really appreciate it. And I hope that this kicked us off with some really great visions and ideas and questions and thinking that you have throughout the conference. And we're really looking forward to being in space with you this week. So I'm going to go ahead and invite our Director of Environmental Initiatives, Joel Moffett, up next to close us out. And we'll go ahead and go upstage.
Tatsmevi Humyuma Kalatiwama. Good morning, relatives and friends. As Eric said, my name is Joel Moffett. I'm a citizen of the Nez Perce tribe, and I serve as Director of Environmental and Special Projects at NAP. I want to, on behalf of Native Americans in Philanthropy and everyone in the audience, I want to thank all of our presenters for this wonderful panel and for sharing your knowledge and experiences with all of us. Yeah. I don't know who that was. Good. We're so excited to have you all here. There's so much more to come over the next 3 days that our NAP team and our local planning committee have been thoughtfully planning out over the last many months. There are breakout sessions from leaders and partners in the field, our next 2 plenaries, the last of which will have funders with tribal partners talking about successful collaborations, our opening reception tonight, and many more. We are so grateful to share space with everyone, create meaningful connections, and grow together over the next 3 days. To wrap up this plenary, just as some housekeeping, The registration desk has limited supply of masks and COVID tests if you need them. If you haven't downloaded the Whova app, don't worry, you still can. Go ahead and download it. It has all the information on there, the agenda, a bunch of other cool features like posting questions for the panel. Breakout sessions start at 11. Check the Whova app to see where you might want to go. If the breakout session is full, don't worry, there's lots of others to choose from. Join us back here for lunch and a showcase from the Ikirawan Youth Acting Ensemble. Don't want to miss that. Our vendors are already out there. Don't forget to stop by, and they're open until 6:30 p.m. today and tomorrow. If you need a space to relax or to have a quiet moment, please check out our Elders and Quiet Room by registration. And lastly, please join us tonight for our opening reception. We'll be here in the ballroom at 5:30, and then we'll put together a Choose Your Own Adventure evening up on the 6th floor. And you can pick from bingo, comedy, and country music. So can't wait to see you. Thank you all, everyone.